Hi, I'm Martin Jarvis, and once again I want to welcome you to another perspective. Today we're going to talk about marriage, finding a spouse, finding a high-value spouse, being a high-value spouse, and staying married, staying happily married. That's what we're going to talk about today. I've been married for 27 years now. This is 2025. And so I'm coming to you not in theory, but in reality, okay? You know, the stats are that 50% of marriages, approximately, end in divorce. Then the question is, out of the 50 that stay together, how many of them staying together for financial purposes? How many are staying together for religious purposes? How many are staying together for the sake of the children, or how they would look to society and all that? So really, the number of people staying together because they're absolutely thrilled with each other might not be 50%. So we're going to talk about some realism today, about getting married, about being married, about finding a spouse, and what we have to look forward to, okay? And, because I have a lot of people, my age, I'll be 67 this year, 2025. A lot of my people have the people my age have, maybe outlived their spouses, or maybe are divorced, and they just don't want to spend the rest of their lives alone. And so we're going to talk about these things, okay? And so we talk about those stats being 50-50 as far as divorce. Well, I want to use that number, but in another way. I want to look at it as far as a glass of water, okay? When you're single, you're a full glass of water. That is to say, it's all yours. You get to do anything you want with it. You get to wake up when you want, go to bed when you want, eat what you want, go do everything, whatever you want to do. Because that's your glass and your water. And so that's your full glass of water. So then, if the individual you might be wishing to find or wishing to marry, they're a full glass of water themselves, okay? And so, but when you get married, you no longer have a full glass of water. Now you have a half a glass of water, and your spouse or your potential spouse has a half a glass of water as well. In other words, now you have to share, okay? So half is yours, half is the other person's. That could be a dilemma. And so you really have to look carefully. Do you really want to share your glass of water? Okay, because I had a gentleman approach me. He wanted to get married. He was about 62 years old. He'd been married twice before, 10 years each time. But he's looking at marriage again. But he said to me he definitely wants to be happy. Because he spent all this time building up his finances and all this stuff that's his. He doesn't want to take a chance on losing it to somebody else. Well, I'm like, man, you just got the wrong attitude right there. You don't need to be married. You just need to date. Okay? Keep what's yours is yours, because the moment you decide you want to get married, immediately what is yours is no longer yours. What is that person's is no longer that person's. It is now all of yours, okay? And so he didn't really want to hear that. But let me tell you about that water. Because you're going to find a lot of people just can't seem to be happy. He was looking for happiness, and evidently he didn't find it in his last two marriages. But when you have a glass that's half full, you know the analogy that you have a glass that's half full, you're either looking at the half full part and being content, or looking at the half empty part and being miserable. And that's the answer right there. When you have a spouse now, and both of you have half a glass of water, that water that you have is the things that you enjoy, the things that you like to do, and the things that you're all about, okay, and that make you happy. That person's glass is the same way for that individual, the things that they're all about, the things that make them happy. Now, the funniest thing in finding a compatible spouse is opposites do attract. Very rarely you're going to find someone that thinks just like you and that you're going to be attracted to. So opposites attract. That's just the simple reality. And the problem with opposites responding to each other, opposites attracted to each other, is that the opposites, they have opposite likes and dislikes than you do, okay? So their half full glass isn't going to mimic your half full glass, okay? That's where the compromise comes in. And if two people, or just one of the parties, simply looks at their half-empty glass and looks at what they don't have, they're going to be unhappy. And same with the spouse. If they simply look at their unhappy part, the empty part of their glass, they're not going to be happy either. The key is to focus on what you do have. Focus on what makes you happy. The key for both of them is that don't focus on what you don't have, because that's what you bought into. This is an entirely individual human being who has their own likes, their own dislikes. So you have to gravitate toward finding what you like in them, and they have to gravitate toward what they find they like in you, even though it's totally against what they like. I mean, you might be a person The longer you stay single, the more difficult it is because you're kind of stuck in your ways. You're stuck in your glass, right? So you might be a person that has an immaculate house. And everybody comes in the house, you have to take your shoes off, to walk on your beautiful carpet, right? And you might hook up with a guy or marry a guy that likes to keep his boots on and just come trudging in the house. Boom, right there. That's your half-empty part of your glass, okay? So immediately what we have to do, if we want to find a high-value individual, high-value spouse, as somebody that is not, an alcoholic or addicted to drugs or something, or in jail, pen pal or something like that, we have to decide that if my half-empty glass are there issues enough for me to deal with and be okay with? And they have to be the same thing about me, okay? Now let me give you some encouragement in that. I believe that, we are looking for a spouse, looking for a wife, looking for a husband. What are you giving to that potential spouse? What gift are you? See, when my friend was talking about he wanted to be happy, he wasn't saying anything about being concerned about how happy he could make his potential spouse. He just wanted to be happy. So what are you doing, okay? So I think the key is when you recognize that both of you have a half empty and half full glass of water, you have to try to do your best to increase the water in their glass. And they have to do their best to try to increase the water in yours, willingly. So I'm going to, try to, make some more money. I'm going to get a greater education. I'm going to try to get in shape, be healthy, be trimmed as best that I can. Or, whatever I can do, I'm going to do. Okay? See, I just finished working out. I work out every day. I'm going to be 67 years old this year. It's not easy. That's why it's called work out. Okay? But I know if I want to maintain, my cardio going on, if I want to be halfway healthy most of my life, which I intend on living a long life, it's going to take work. And it's the same with you keeping yourself together for your spouse. So you're just not doing it for yourself. Nothing when you get married is about you, simply you anymore. And that's why you don't make me happy. You do this, you do that. Yeah, but what are you doing? So the key then is to do your best to increase your value. Okay, let me put it that way. Increase the water in their glass. Increase your value. Okay, and that will increase the water in their glass, and that will make you feel better. That'll be motivation for them as well. Both parties. See, you can't eventually end up with two full glasses. I just saw a picture on Facebook about this couple been married for 82 years. Okay? They have two full glasses. They were able to figure that out. We need to figure that out. Okay? But don't be despondent. It is going to take work. And let me one little caveat. Alcohol is a big problem, in marriages. Okay? Number one, don't go out drinking with your friends. Don't go out drinking without your spouse. Okay? That's a recipe for disaster. Okay? You really shouldn't be drinking alcohol at all, because that could possibly lead to an addiction, and that'd be a whole different problem we might do on another program. But anyway, I hope you got something out of this. I want to thank you once again for joining me for another perspective, and I want to invite you to join me again. You take care. Bye.